Temperatures creeping up. It's 8:15. Now, dozens of firefighters from across the UK have travelled to Turkey over the last 12 days to help with the huge rescue effort following the devastating earthquakes on the 6th of February.
Members of Lincolnshire's Fire and Rescue team and their search dog Colin have now returned home after spending a week in Antakya in Turkey, where they helped to find survivors. Joe Mackle has been reporting on the challenges they faced.
Deep inside a collapsed hotel, a tight space on the second floor. Aftershocks are still a risk. But in the rubble, Colin, Neil and their interpreter can hear something.
But we can hear the lady shouting from here. We said to the team, I've heard people in there. It took us 18 hours to get in and to rescue, but yeah, it was a wonderful 18 hours pulling them both out.
Your morale's so high then you just want to dig and dig and dig and keep going. The brother of the man that was inside that hotel came and spoke to us. He said before the UK team got there, he had nothing. He said, I had nothing, and then when you arrived, I've got hope.
It was one of 8 live rescues for the UK International Search and Rescue Team. This one involved an elderly woman. But the scale of devastation was, even with their specialist training, difficult to deal with.
The area we were assigned, our sector, it just looked like it had been bombed. It sounds strange, but it just took your breath away. You just couldn't believe the scale of it.
There's people coming over saying, I can hear my kids, I can hear my wife, I know where they are, but when we go over, if we can't pinpoint where they are and hear anything, it's such a tough job to say, sorry, we can't help you and move on.
This was also the first deployment abroad for Colin, a specially trained search and rescue dog.
I think in the first maybe few hours, I think Colin maybe did 20 searches. It was manic, it was absolutely manic.
In one void, Colin sustained a deep cut to his back paw, which needed 8 stitches.
We rested him for 24 hours and then he was back out searching again. So yeah, it's been an eventful few days.
On the way out, the team only had about an hour to say goodbye to their families. Now safely home, they say it will take a long time to process the last few days and a disaster which has so far claimed tens of thousands of lives.
The families that you've seen that have been absolutely ripped apart, but also the rewarding part of knowing the families you've actually been able to help and make a difference, and that is what kind of keeps us going, and that's why we do this job, and it does make you give your loved ones an extra big hug and kiss and more affection when you get home. It puts a lot of things into perspective.
Adana, it was in Adana.
Amazing work. That was Joe Mackle reporting. We're now delighted to be joined by 4 more actually, of the UK team who took part in the rescue effort in Turkey. Firefighters Keith Finlay, Alex Ramatar and Neve Darcy, and of course, Vesper. There she is. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Thanks, very good. We're just keeping Vesper focused on that tennis ball. She's a lot of energy.
Yeah, we should probably explain that. We'll explain the logistics of the sofa here, because over here we have a ball, and that is why Vesper is absolutely glued wherever the ball is.
A ball and a man, Keith.
Of course,
yes, good morning, Keith. Sorry, I didn't give you a full introduction. Now, we were just hearing, we were seeing that report a moment ago. Okay. You know that team, and it was Colin, their search dog, because you all operate sort of together and then you separate into different places. I think we've got some images, and maybe Neve, you can start us off. I think we've got some images, some of the work you've been involved in.
Okay.
And shall we bring up I think first of all we've got a still image, I think, of Keith. This is a search you were involved in.
Wow.
Do you want to, can you take us back to the time and place? What's happening?
This was Neve was currently, she was on a search on a different site just down the street. We had actually we stand back, wait, let Neve do her thing. And we speak to all the locals and the people around that area. So that one there, we got information from some of the locals that there possibly was someone inside. They'd heard voices previously.
Is that you in that image?
No, that's one of my, it's by safety, because I was actually crawling inside that building.
At that point, you were inside.
I was inside,
the rubble
yeah.
we can see there.
So it was a mother and a son we were looking for. And the lady outside, I think it was grandmother, was basically obviously distressed and trying to sort of find her family. So whilst Neve was doing that, we decided we'll go in and try and investigate and try and see what we could see. We got in there quite far and we found what wasn't what we wanted to see, type of thing. So we got inside and we gave the information back to our team leader, who obviously then passed it back to the family. These are sort of things we do. We go into these buildings, we look, and we try and shout out, hear voices, hear scratching and things like that. When I went in there, I could physically, see the actual the lady and the boy sort of inside.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's tough, but you know, that's what we sort of went out there to do, to sort of try and find these people. So.
And then you're having to communicate that back to the grandma.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, through a translator, because obviously, you know, and it's hard. It's hard work. So.
And I'm well aware, Keith. I'm full of respect for everything you all do, but also for talking about it, because I mean, it's not easy to recount these.
No,
it's not easy to recount this stuff because you've seen things that the rest of us have not. So I really appreciate that. Can we, Neve, can we talk a little bit about how the operation works? So you, as Keith explained, someone says something, they think someone is inside.
Yeah.
And we've all seen from some of the reporting, everyone goes quiet, and we see, and it could be your dog or one of the other dogs go in.
Well, as you can imagine, it was very dynamic. It was very, very stressful. And when we hit the ground, we really did run and get into it. The whole ISR team, 77 strong, was divided into 4 teams. We travelled with 4 dogs, so each dog was divided into 1 team. Unfortunately, one of our dogs, Colin, got injured on the first day, so I rotated between a blue team and a red team. Most of our intel did come from people on the street, and it was a case of please help us, and it was just such a desperate, dynamic scene. So on the UK ISO team, we know that these dogs are our best asset, and we are there to perform rescues. So literally, what this dog tells us helps us make a decision on what we're going to perform.
As you're talking, so we're seeing a picture. This is Vespa. It's actually a little bit hard to work out exactly what's happening there. What was the scenario you were working with there?
Well, we had done about 14-hour shift, and as I said, I peppered between 2 teams. So that picture is just to show you the devastation of a house actually lifting up and dropping down. That's what a colleague, another dog handler called Lindsay, I think you had her on recently, on yesterday. So when the dog works, with Davey, yeah.
Yes.
So when the dog works, you have to have a spotter, because I concentrate so much on what the dog is doing, that safety will watch my safety. So the biggest issue I had initially on the first day was getting all the local people to move away.
Right.
Because once they find out it's a live scenting dog, it just cram in, and you're trying to explain to them that she's a live scenting dog, so that their scent would interfere with her picture. So even on the first day, when we had really reliable intel that we were going in to avoid that the digger had been down about a 4-metre drop, about a 10-metre space, I climbed in there and I set the dog off, and the dog started barking, and my heart was just, oh yes, we have another one. That was our second hit for the day, really positive. But it was locals from the other side. We were so desperate to come in to see if the dog would give any indication, but she was barking at people climbing in through the runnel. So everyone in the team was a bit like, oh. So we learned from that experience very early on to keep our cordon. So I'd step up first with the incident commander, and then all my strong team would move everyone back as politely and effectively as possible. But once the translator got across that the dog is completely looking for live scent, it made our job much easier, and that process became a little bit slicker.
And that's the sort of thing I guess you're only learning on the job, isn't it?
Well, it is. You know that obviously, you know that dog's picking up live scent, but we've never worked at anything in that scenario of devastation, that mass, where people are so desperate and trying to come in and are grieving and are desperate and are pleading for your assistance, that they think they're helping. So the dog having to work through, every one of us here have a unique scent code, not you, not you, not you, not you. It's just making our job a little bit harder.
Alex, we I saw you guys just outside, and you obviously have a great working relationship, banter, for want of a better word. But I think we got a sense of it a moment ago about the pressures on you and how difficult it is. In the moment you're there, you're working, you're doing your job, and then you come back, and people will be, worried about you and the effect it has on you and your team. How do you go about looking after yourselves?
We get a lot of support throughout the whole thing. So before deploying, the support's there. We get it from Merseyside Fire, where it's our home fire station, fire service. So throughout the whole thing, we've got a lot of support. And when we get back, we've created a bond of family when we've been out there. So we've seen things that's quite hard to describe at times, and done things which can be quite emotionally challenging.
I only know because we spoke to one of the other teams yesterday. They said that one of the most difficult times, frankly, is now. When you for obvious reasons, people have said, your work here is done. You can go, and that hits home for you.
Yeah, I think whilst out there, you don't necessarily notice the effects because you're moving at such a fast pace all the time. The adrenaline's definitely there, and you're making an effort, and then to come back, you're going from 100 miles an hour to very slow, very quickly. But we've got good support networks throughout Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service. We've got a week off now, so a bit of time just to process everything that we've done, and then we go back and we've got a diffusal session. We've got occupational health within our fire service, so we've got different routes we can talk to.
And you were involved in the Malcolm Russell rescue, is that right? Or in the wider team? I think we've got some footage.
Yes,
actually,
we all were, yes.
Once again, would you mind explaining what we're seeing here? This wasn't your direct footage, but this was the wider investigation you were part of.
Yeah, so this one was a 7-storey hotel block in between 2 other hotels. The 2 surrounding it were okay. This middle one had completely collapsed, in a pancake collapse. The gentleman involved had sent a text message to a colleague saying that he was trapped in this building. Because of the lack of signal, it hadn't gone through until about 3 days later. So we were given so we were given intelligence on the ground that there was a gentleman in here. So by using the dogs, as Neve's talked about, and other detection devices, we were able to pinpoint the location. And then it was about 22 hours it took for a team of 70. We worked on rotations to dig through and actually locate.
Although you call that the Malcolm Russell one, the whole team was involved in that. That void was seriously one person's shoulder width at times. Tools, gorilla buckets.
Were you any of you actually in?
You
all went inside.
All inside that,
I was actually outside because I gave my respiration to somebody who is remarkably good at digging, and I obviously had to supervise the dogs. So it was a case of I supervised all the kit outside, all dogs was lost daylight. We have to keep our kids safe. We have to be in a safety cordon of the further aftershocks or buildings collapsing down.
The reality of that situation and is that you can't know. I appreciate you're making all the security you can in terms of whether it's safe or not, but you can't know that, can you?
No, not at all. Because obviously that one you're talking about, we had a lot of equipment with us, and the locals see that equipment, and then they want to use it to go and do their own rescues or their own sort of digging to find their own relatives. If we keep on letting them take the equipment from us, then we wouldn't have anything. So it's sort of trying to keep that safety, trying to keep that sort of equipment with us it's quite hard. I'm just seeing the footage here of this. This is another rescue which we're involved in, and this was intelligence basically from a message from. There's a video message actually. It was the local came up to us and showed us this video, and this video we thought, okay, it was credible. So we went and investigated, and this was a male. He was in the house with his family, and he was up to his waist, sort of trapped and everything else. I think it took about 4 or 5 hours.
Do you mean he'd videoed himself?
No. Someone had actually videoed, obviously, the voices or the actual collapse of the house, and he knew there was someone still inside it.
I do think it's remarkable what you've done. Can I just ask one? Because quite a few people asked me afterwards, having seen Davey yesterday. Do you think the dogs? I was going to say suffer. I don't mean suffer. They've been in abnormal scenarios as well. In this rubble and doing that work. Do they know? Do you think the difference between the situation they're in and
there's different thoughts on that. Dogs are eternally happy. And they very much live in the moment.
Of course.
Vespa suffered conjunctivitis, had the 2 other dogs just working in that dust environment. She's been treated for that, and she's on drops for that. I think what was noticed after maybe 40, 45 searches, her tempo was a bit like, oh, we haven't found anyone. But the working environment was so stressful, and she's placing her paws. She just kept giving everything, because the dogs work on hope, just like we do, that they're going to find somebody. And so they just keep looking for that option. Maybe callous is that it's a game to them. They're looking for live scent, and they know when they get live scent, they get that over there. And that's what we train for.
It's a game for them, but it's so much more for you
so
and to the
serious.
families,
Yeah,
and to the families that you've helped. And I know it will be a difficult readjustment coming home, but your work is incredible, and we're so grateful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Neve and Alex, thank you, and Vespa.
We have the